need to worry about that. It's so strange now. Ever since you came into my life, Angel, all the people who are sick keep getting better. And you've even managed to cure me. Oh, Angel. I'm sorry. Did you hear me talking to myself? That's fine. I wouldn't dream of conducting things behind your back. If you happen to be curious of what I'm doing, it's pretty simple, actually. I'm making a budget for the clinic. Something that is woefully boring and quite important, too. A double whammy to someone like me. I like helping people. I don't like doing finances, and... You mean you can help? That would be wonderful, actually. I'm not entirely sure how you manage it, but if you can, it would be a great help. Angel, recently, I've been facing something. Something that's been eating me up inside. My demons, as you know, are much more prevalent than most. As you know, I'm quite familiar with people in my field. Ex-cons, rogues, outcasts, you name it. But that's not what I'm trying to bring the point to. I need to go back and talk to someone. I need to go back in time. Not to get directly involved, mind you, but I need to repay a debt. If you want to accompany me, I have a request of you. I need you to be safe, so at least let me feel it out. As you may have guessed, it's not someone who I got along with. But be it as it may, there isn't much avoiding it. Just like there isn't any avoiding staring into those beautiful eyes of yours, Angel. No, it's just a debate. When are you gonna sprout those wings? Those wings that I know you're hiding. Your second quirk. Or is it just that beautiful smile? You never cease to amuse me, my angel. That flush to your face is something I didn't expect, and I still can't take for granted. Maybe it's because I've cured you. All those things that ailed you, they're gone. You'll live a happy life, as will I. Do you think it's wrong what I do? Do you think what I do is too invasive? I suppose I got self-conscious of it lately. It was brought to my attention that sometimes my cure may have an effect on people. Not one that's intended, and I got extra concerned about it. All of my confidence came into question when I realized that the world around me, it's not that it was ever broken. It's not that the world was wrong, despite what the other me thinks. While he still comes out as he pleases. That's not why he's here. That's not why I'm here. I'm here not to make the same mistake as my father. Not to repeat my family's sin, but to cleanse it, to change the world. Though fortunately for all of us involved, that means a lot less invasive than before. Those people, the ones that doubted me, are gonna be the ones that get the most treatment, only if they ask for it. You see, it's been a series of things that keeps happening, a cycle that repeats itself, of people making stupid mistakes, only to come back in the end and ask for my help. And me being the softy that I am, I can't turn them down. I don't have the heart for that. I'm a physician, not some kind of a butcher. I was wrong for all those years that I hid, for all those people that I let down. Not least of all, my daughter. It pains my heart, you know, to think that I caused so much agony, thinking that quirks were the problem. Sure, they're not always good sunshine and positivity, but the real problem is how you use them. I learned that the hard way. And as silly as it is to shed tears on my birthday, I just can't avoid it. No, that would be too naive. They're not all sad tears. But I want you to see me, unapologetically, as something more. More than my past. More than what my doubt. When I have those events. When my other side comes out. I need you to stop me. No. I know it's not often. No, it's not often at all, actually. In fact, it almost never comes out. It's more of a defense mechanism, if anything. But that's only half the story. I can complain and tell you about all the faults in the world, but I'd be a hypocrite. And unfortunately, that's not my place. No. I want you to see me not as the plague doctor behind the scary mask. I want you to see me as the me who's both a lover, a fighter, and a cure. I don't want people to be afraid of me. Does that make sense? Not at all, actually. I've never seeked to make people scared, to drive fear into them only when I thought there was no other way. That was desperation, not the correct path. And honestly, I think that I've learned my lesson. In order to be a good doctor and a good person, you've got to face what you're not. You've got to face what it means to be a human, and that means facing that we all have those faults, those scars in our hearts that lead us into temptation. Now, I don't believe that it has to do with the god or devils that we face, but the us that stares us back is always there. I just want to make sure you can face it just like me, that you can be just as free as me, and that my cure isn't just one of body. I want to cure people from sadness, and that's why I did it. That's why I made this. The entire orphanage and clinic, it's all been fruition of a bigger dream, of making a difference, of changing the world. Maybe I won't live to see it, but I can see something bigger than myself. And it helps me forgive the me that was from before. The me that criticized ruthlessly, and the me that looked down on almost anyone. No, I won't be that kind of person, not anymore. I've grown up. I guess you could consider me quite the late bloomer, in a certain sense. Now, before we head out, before we go looking to start some trouble in the world or to change it, I wanted to ask you, how do you really feel since living here, Angel? I've tried to make it seem as free as possible, and yet I can't conceal myself any longer. No, I'm the monster. The monster that can take control at any moment. And yet I can't hurt you. I'm just here to show you it's more than curing bodies or ailments, despite what my innocent side might say. I'm not a bad person, even if I've done bad deeds. We were in unison, in agreement, that those were the proper choices. And even now, there's so much we have to learn. I blamed things wrongly, and I think that was my sin. And now, with an angel at my side, I can repay my debts. The ones that frightened me for years, the ones that crippled me, that nearly took my life. If, for some reason, something happens to me and I get cured of my own volition, I want you to remember me. That I existed too. Not just the happy idiot, but the one that faces all the adversity. The one that doesn't know how to turn down a procedure. The one that would take in anyone, and yet caused a lot of mishaps in my practice. I may not be the most stable doctor in the world, but I also can say I'm the most determined one. Probably the most passionate too. You see, I'm not just a doctor. I believe this is my calling beyond anything else. And that's why it brings me so much joy to see the smiles on the face of those who get cured, and it makes everything I do worth it. You're the one that I owe a great debt to. One of three. The three I will give whatever they ask of me. And if it takes my everything, I need you to promise me, no matter what happens, you take care of whoever I am, or you teach them who they used to be. You give the children what you can, and you never forget who I was. The one that so many point at and hate. The one that's seen as a hapless, ruthless villain. I did what I did to try and help people. Not always, but once I learned, I could hardly prevent myself from rearranging that part of my brain, but I could never come to grips with it. I felt like it was a coward's way out, erasing the one who did the deeds and leaving it to the weak side, the sweet side, who's just an innocent child at heart. I know I don't have a name, but I don't need one. I'm the one who bears the sin of fear, both of quirks and fear of being my old man. And in that, if you ever come to hate the one who put you here, hate me. I tried to cure you. I went above and beyond through something I didn't have any business doing. The invasive cure is not something that is meant to be. Instead, it's a fault. A showing of my own self-doubt. The me that thinks I know the world in all its massive wonder ends up every bit the fool. I can't promise anything. When I see someone, I can't help but try and cure them. I'm sick. I was sick all along. It was always me. Good intentions, sometimes they pave the way to hell. And I think, even with the angel which so graciously has stayed by my side, I have no right to talk to you. Did you happen to hear all that? I'm sorry. I think I need a moment. The me that you were speaking to was not the me you normally know, not the me that we normally speak to. But for some reason, the tears, they won't stop. I think that he's wounded, and it's my fault. I don't know why. Why do things have to be so difficult in my head? I want to speak to the other me, and yet, even thinking of altering, it's frightening and sad. Like killing someone. The other sides of myself don't feel like me anymore. They feel like someone else. And not a monster as I labeled them. Perhaps they are. But they're a monster I'd like to get to understand. And maybe someday, if that really was the monster, we can actually coexist and make something of that dream we seem to share. It's all so hazy, like a strange dream all at once, and yet I can't feel it. It's like an unknown place in my mind, in my heart. He called me childish, but I think he's the one who's truly reeling, truly suffering, curing ruthlessly. May not be a cure at all, but to think his intentions, I misunderstood them. I don't think he was one to talk before, and yet now, I think you've given him a place to, a means to. That's incredible, because without communication, it would just be triggers and we would switch. Trauma, and he'd be out again, facing the problems I should have, the ones I was too scared, or perhaps too involved to properly face. I feel responsible, like someone holding the knife, yet never knowing why. Until now, I think I understand myself more. I really couldn't have done this without someone as kind-hearted as you, my angel. Moreover, no one has ever tried to have the patience to cure me. Instead, they just view me as a psychopath, as someone too sick to ever have cured. Thank you for understanding my unreasonable requests and for giving me a chance to make this life count for something good instead of something bad that it used to stand for. I want to be more than I ever was. No, I will be. Or in the immortal words of someone I once looked up to, or I'll die trying. But it's not time for that right now. No, it's time for us to be off. Now, shall we? I know it's my birthday, and that's fine. It's not even a problem. It's just that's not what I'm focused on. I have way too much on my heart. And once I solve this, then we'll see about a birthday. Until then, I don't think I'll be able to relax. So, as another selfish request, would you stay here as I go face it? I knew you'd say that. And for that reason is the very reason I love you. At least to my understanding of the word. I only hope I can do it justice, because you deserve so much better. I need to pay back that debt. It's to someone who I owe a great deal for sparing my life. Someone who used to be just another villain on the streets, much like myself, though of an opposing force, action and reaction, though it's a bad analogy. They've learned their lesson as they grew, just like me. It's strange how people mature, how they change. The world is in constant motion, and I feel humbled that people like you and, well, so many others, that they exist despite it all. I can't understand it, but still I'm thankful. As for the debt, it's one I don't expect to be easily paid back, as the context of it was my life. I owed them more than anything else, my life. And despite that, I have so little to give. At worst case, they'll ask for my life, and I'll have to choose. Or at best case, they'll ask for something like servitude or an extremely difficult favor. Sometimes I wonder, why was I given this? Why did I do what I chose to do? And then I think, I know why. Because right or wrong, it's what I believed in at the time. And our past sometimes follow us into our present. So forgive me, Angel. It may take me some time, but I promise, no matter what happens, I will come back. Even if I have to go to drastic measures in order to ensure that they don't stop me. I may still have those tendencies inside me. I can be violent. I just hope that they don't force my hand. As long as they don't, then everything should be just fine. Now my question is, are you sure, Angel, that you'd like to go with me? There's really no need. If you're worried, I can take care of this without having to cure any sick, without having to do anything too drastic. What would my children think if they saw me needlessly harming someone that I'm supposed to care about? I'd be a hypocrite, not once, but twice. And there's nothing more in this world that I hate more than a hypocrite. Except worse, a liar. Something I have no intention of ever becoming. Now, if you're insisting on going with me today, why don't we take a step outside and enjoy ourselves? I didn't want the children to hear me, especially not what I'm about to tell you. I've never been able or had the luxury of having someone as trustworthy or dependable as you. And so I have to make sure you get out of this. This is my gun. In case anything unforeseen happens. In case of the absolute worst, I want you to use your quirk to stop me or them. Today is a reunion of outcasts, of sinners that saw the mirrors bite. And I wonder if this sinner will get a second chance. I know I could just forget the debt, pretend it never happened. I could be a coward, but it would accomplish nothing. As long as the resentment exists, there's nothing I can do. I need to solve the problems at their root, or else I'll be consumed by guilt and shame. I want to be a man who can save this world that's aching, that's troubled, and I need to know what I can do. I've cured so many people, but the one thing I could never cure was my guilt. This is the first step. Therapy. The first step to recovery, they say, is knowing. Knowing when you need the help. And as much as I'd love to say I didn't, I'd be a liar to say I could do this without them. It may take us a while. And, well, I won't lie to you. It's a very dangerous situation. The person in question has just met with one of the most terminal of illnesses. Betrayal. Something that stings, almost unending. And for once, it's turned to the other cheek. Now I have the opportunity to help them. I know you don't know who I'm talking about. And that's okay. You don't need to. Because they are, to me, what fire is to water. My opposite force. And someone who I know needs anything to free them from their torment. This may seem cryptic. Perhaps you'll understand once you see him. Would you believe I once hated this fellow? I lost my arm to him after all. For the longest time, all I could think about was rearranging his insides, killing him, leaving nothing but dust. But honestly, as time went on, I realized something. It wasn't that time, but a time much later. He saved my life. Sworn enemies, and yet he still avoided killing me. Why? And I saw it in his eyes, as plain as day. He was sick. Sick with something far worse than a disease. Far more virulent than any virus. No. He was lonely. He knew if he killed me, he'd never have another person who could go so even with him. And he would just be bored, lonely, empty. More than anything else, I think he fears that. I think he feared what happened so much that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. His worries sadly came true. He couldn't escape them. And I feel as though he's like me. He's been through so much, and even still he's sick, now more than ever. So I feel it's only right that I pay him back properly. It's always important to understand people don't choose to be sick. It's life and its difficulties that put them there. I guess what I'm saying is it's a bit embarrassing, but I just want to offer him another chance. Something of a gut feeling tells me he'll need all the help he can get. And honestly, I'm not gonna turn down someone who's learned from their mistakes like me. I've studied him a lot. I went through years of hating him, of misunderstanding what he stood for, what he meant. And now today, at this very doorstep, hopefully it changes. Hopefully we can make a difference. Well, this is my battle to fight. As for if he is going to take my life, I can at least assure you I'm quite difficult to kill, even for him. Now, where were we? I think it's time I knock on the door. Again, if anything happens, I'll be sure to retreat. I have too much to live for, my angel. Now, stand back. This is something I have to face. A remnant of my past. Go away. I'm not in the mood right now. I can't just go away. I came to help you. Offer you something you probably can't get on your own. And I don't have any strings attached either. And what makes you think I'd give a damn about that? It's game over for me. Now if you don't leave, I'll make sure it's game over for you too. Come now, Shigaraki. You of all people should know it's not the past any longer. And what do you know about my past? What do you know about anything? Do you even realize what happened? No, you have no idea. You probably just got some information from someone completely uninvolved. So if you think you can just waltz down here and pretend to be my friend just because you heard that happened, don't think you'll get off easy. If only life was so simple, then maybe I wouldn't be in this predicament. Maybe I'd be in my happy place.
maybe I wouldn't be sitting here with everything I worked for stolen from me. And the worst part of it is, I can't even blame anyone. Do you know what that feels like?
Actually, I think I do. I've been there. Tomura Shigaraki.
You think you've been there? That makes me even more pissed off at you. If only because you claim to know me just like everyone else did. Just like they did. No, you don't know me. And you should just leave me. Leave me to my misery. I've lost everything. Are you just here to laugh at me? Is that it, Overhaul? Do you want to say you finally beat me? Without even having to lift a finger?
You must be confusing me with someone. I don't enjoy pain or suffering. Sure, I was overzealous. But while we were enemies, you were also someone who spared me. You saved me in a way I can't ignore. So, are you going to let me repay my debt and open up the door? Or are you going to continue this? What's your plan, Shigaraki? Because it certainly sounds like your plan involves something much sadder than what I had in mind. Don't you want your life to mean something? Don't you want it to really be some...
Don't you say that to me. Acting all high and mighty. What are you, the GM? Are you trying to tell me you're gonna offer me some kind of benevolence? Right now. Now of all times. What's the point? What's the damn point? Can't you see? I don't need that. I don't want that. I want everything to go back to how it was. But I can't do that. I can't. Because they... Why am I telling you? What does it even matter if you know or don't?
Maybe it matters. Or maybe it doesn't. Really, wouldn't you rather have somebody to vent to than talking to the walls? I meant no disrespect, but we all have our demons. In that, you're not unique. But I want to see you cured, and not in the archaic, dated way of saying it. I used to be like you, dwelling on the pain, hating the world for it being exactly what it is. But you can continue to blame the sickness, or you can find a cure.
But still, you don't understand. They were everything. Everything. Everything to me. You don't just give everything and then come back from that I've been a kicked dog all my life. It took everything in order to try and open up. Now you're asking me, not even a week after, to give this a second chance? What do you think you are? Some kind of pro? Because all I see in front of me is some noob who doesn't understand. Do you even know? Are you even aware of the things that happened?
I'm more aware than perhaps anyone else. And I don't say that to be disrespectful or invasive to your privacy. Only you're quite a celebrity, and it's not easy not to hear about you. Especially not when things go bad. Life tends to work that way. And sadly, it's not monotonous. Neither is it ever changing. It's just, I felt, due to my own sanctity of mind and my own leaps and bounds as a person, I felt you were a kindred spirit to me, a friend that I've never had, or at least someone that I owed a favor from a long time ago.
So now, you conveniently show up as the tall grass. You, a shiny and rare type, just expect me to take goodwill for nothing and trust you. We trying to kill each other. What makes you think I won't make your life hell again?
That's a simple one. Because I think you've never really been a villain. You're just like me. You've wanted to change the world. You've wanted to do something. And when it didn't work out, you felt defeated, frustrated, terrified.
Stop trying to assume you understand me. Look, just give me your flyer or whatever. Give me the demo disc. Whatever you're gonna do. Just leave after that. I'll think about it. But I'm not making any promises, just so that they could be broken again. Unlike some people, I don't break my promises. Even if I hate them, then still, I can't break the promise. Can't. Just leave me alone. Leave me alone, please.
Then I'll leave this here. Now, Tomura, just be sure to feel better. I spent part of my birthday trying to help, and I feel I've only made things worse, and for that, I'm sorry. I will make good my debt to you. I think it's what I need to do.
Screw your self-righteous Never mind. Thanks for the effort to kiss. Now just go. Go, please.
Do you think it was wrong of me to want to do a good deed on my birthday? I feel I may have got overly excited. Maybe I was too insensitive. Whatever the case may be, I'm sorry, Angel. While you inspired me, I fear I lack the follow-through to make a difference in his life. At least right now. But maybe we planted the seed. Just a tiny one. That he's not alone anymore. Or maybe that he doesn't have to be. It's my heart that often gets me in trouble. And I see it still does. But I don't have any regrets. I want to make a proper effort. But at least, even if I failed, I have you by my side and I can say I tried. Just maybe in an overzealous way. And maybe someday, things will work out just fine. But before I let this get to me and today, why don't we do something? I can see it in your eyes, Angel. You want to celebrate my birthday and make me smile. I appreciate that. In fact, I am speechless. The fact that you would consider me so much. I adore that. Then, why don't we go to someplace simple? I think it's more fun in the first place. After all, we could spend all of our days doing fancy, complicated things. But it's the thought behind them, the feeling, that actually makes the difference. Why don't we go to the ramen shop? The one that's down the street from here. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, but no regrets anymore. I don't have time for regrets. They're just not worth it to me. And I think you're much the same, Angel. Maybe there's one or two. But I trust you. I believe you wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Come on now. Chin up. I'm happy to have you here. Happy to have you with me. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done. Maybe it's just me, but perhaps today can be a good day still. I'm not one to give up. When people were sick, I never once gave up on curing them. Now, this place is right across the street, and I've been wanting to try it. Let's go ahead and enjoy a small birthday celebration. I'm sure you noticed earlier. The children, they're preparing a small celebration once we get home. But of course, even if I perceive it, I like to try and act like I'm surprised. I know acting isn't always the right choice. But something about seeing their smiling faces, it makes it all worth it. Do you think, oh no, you're right. Maybe we should go back now. They may have prepared some kind of food for us. I don't mind going back, just as long as you don't mind eating something that might only be a novice's work. Never fear. I have an iron stomach. I can handle eating almost anything. I can just rearrange it. As for anything else, I'll just avoid anything too dangerous. With any luck, they've been learning just a bit from prior experiences. Did you know they've done something like this ever since I rescued them? They've always been like this. Great children, each and every one of them, pure in ways I wish I was. And yet, watching over them has taught me so much more than I could have ever imagined, like how to avoid dying by poison. No offense to their little chef capabilities, but there's been a number of times I may have ended up dead if not for my... Well, we won't talk too much. Maybe they've improved. Are you sure you're okay with it? Just remember, you're not obligated to eat anything, and if it's too bad, I'll whip up something for us in a jiffy. How does that sound? This must all be so ironic. Not too long ago, I brought you here, and you feared for your life. I was out of control, and now you fear for your life again. But this time, for something that's more like a comic relief skit. Have you ever had a day, one rife with feelings of, well, a lot of clashing ones all at once? Part of me thinks today's just another day. It's not my birthday. And another part of me thinks it doesn't matter. But still, a bigger part of me thinks I want to spend the night with you, making everything so much more. I adore you more than you could ever know, and I appreciate having you here with me. You're more than capable on your own, but together, I think we're unstoppable. I don't know what's got over me. I'm just so overwhelmed with the feeling of having so much bless me in such a short time. I am very thankful, but I don't think it's proper for me to get so stuck in it. We still have time before we need to get back. If you'd like to, I'd enjoy spending some time with just you before the party. I hope I don't sound too out of the blue. It's just, I couldn't get you off my mind all day. And after everything, I just thought how sad it would be without you. Now, there's one place I wanted to show you. It's nothing special, but maybe you'll see it and feel inspired. I know I always used to. It was something like a wake-up call. When I saw it the first time, one of the last good memories I have of my childhood. I wasn't rife with memories of good things, but this was an exception. And I say, there's no one who I'd rather share it with in the whole wide world than you, and on my birthday, no less. Have you ever made a wish on a fountain? A place that people usually hold for pennies and dreams. I used to make a wish every day. I thought if maybe I wished hard enough, things could change for the better. I wonder if those wishes are finally paying off now. Personally, I think they are. Or I'd never have met an angel just like you. My love, you've grown on me so very much, to the point where I couldn't even imagine a moment without you. You've become so paramount to me that there can't be just me anymore. Not without you. Did I not make myself quite clear of things? I'm here and smiling because of you. The place and time, why, that doesn't matter. What truly matters to me is that I express these feelings before they overrun. You don't think I'm some kind of crazy or anything, right? The fact that you believe in me to such an extent, it's both fascinating and inspirational. That's not what you want to hear. Why don't you make a wish? I'm sure I could make it come true. Your lips are so very tasty. Angel, I think I could get very addicted to you. I can never get enough of you. My angel. Pardon, is all of this too sudden? Sometimes, even I have my limitations. Your touch, it's exhilarating. I am glad we're here in this moment. Thank you for the happy birthday. The best one I could have asked for, actually. Feeling you, touching me, is like electricity deep within my body. What an amazing day. So much ups and downs, so much feeling. And now, you, to think you'd go and service me. You're quite bold. What if someone sees? What then? Quite the spectacle, don't you think? Such a bold action, befitting of an angel like yourself. The way you're using your lips. Am I to take this as my birthday present? No. Aren't you worried someone's going to hear us? I think I need to do more than this. Up you go. And now I can attack you just like you were attacking me. Isn't it glorious? I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I know I will. Nice and sticky. Just the way I like it. You're delicious, aren't you? I see. Head up your... Don't worry. I'm sure no one would come by this old park. Are you curious? I seem to have made some alterations to the way that your body works. So if you feel like you're going beyond what you're used to, why, that's because I improved how it should feel. I have to use my quirk for good now. But I think you deserve so much more. And that's just what I'll do. Now, why don't we get you in a nice, cozy position? And I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry. I'll make sure I give something back. A lot of something. Maybe even a big something. I'm sure you're just itching to get more of what's rubbing against you. Now, shall we? Now I'll proudly take you, my angel. Nice and easy. Such a brave and beautiful angel. Do you like the friction? I know I do. Something I can't get enough of. I don't care who hears or sees. That's not important to me. Didn't I tell you? The place isn't what matters. And to think a meal could have just been something to eat. Instead, I get you to devour. What a shameless display. Something that's somehow befitting of you. I feel like such a divine angel must have a dark side. Won't you let me make you fall? I'm sure I can. My angel, you're such a deviant. I love it. I'm not entirely sure how much more of this I can take. With so much clenching. Are you ready? Ready, my angel? I'm going to make you feel it more than you ever have before. Brace yourself. Somehow, seeing you like this only eggs me on more. I want to make a lasting impression on my angel. It'd be such a shame not to. After all, there's so many things left to experience together. Don't you think? My angel, don't move. I don't want you to overexert yourself. Not after so much physical labor. It's not easy to contend and make so much of a night. We've had such a mixture of serious and heartwarming that I can't believe myself. It's almost impossible to think of it. And I know I couldn't do or feel anything with you if you weren't precisely how you are. Never change, my love. You're perfect just the way you are. And if anyone had something to say about it, why, I'd have something quite stern to tell them. You're mine, and they should mind their own business before I rearrange them to. I may not be the brute I once was, but that doesn't mean I'm any less proficient at dealing with troublemakers. Now, let's get off the topic of such serious things. Why don't we go to the surprise party? That way, everyone can smile, and we can make some of the children feel like their efforts aren't to waste. I believe it's always the thought that counts, and I know each and every one of them will grow up to be an amazing person, someone who's even greater than All Might. What do you think, my angel? Do you think they can surpass even the greatest of the great? What an interesting take. True as it may be, I think only time will tell us the victor of what they have to expect will be what world there is left for them. I believe it's our responsibility, our duty even, to make sure that world